Hello and welcome. This is day 3 of us solving square root functions. We're going to start off today with 2 practice problems, and my goal for you is for you to actually try the practice problem. So you're going to pause the video, try out the problem, and as soon as you get stuck or as soon as you get finished, then you can press play and check your work. Okay? Now, obviously, if you don't do that, then you're just hurting your own learning process. So it's kind of up to you and you taking responsibility of your learning. So this is our first question. Make sure you're using your notes that you already have from days 1 and 2. And again, it's okay if you get stuck, you're still learning, but you need to start trying on your own and see how far you can get. So go ahead and press pause and try out this problem. All right, so now I'm going to go through the problem with you, see where you were right, see where you were wrong. Let's see how far we can get. All right, so first thing we need to do is we need to isolate the variable, isolate the radical. And so I'm looking at this and I see that on the left side here, I do have my radical, but I also have this -4 that's here. Notice that this negative sign is in between the 4 and the radical, so I know that this is being subtracted, like -4. But I also have this 1 in front, this negative in front. Remember that we can put a 1 here. And also, let's think about this. Is this -1 being added or subtracted or multiplied or divided? Well, hopefully we know that because there's no sign in between, that this -1 is being multiplied. So in order to get my radical by itself, I need to first move my constant because I'm doing my order of operations backwards. So I'm going to move that -4, and to move that -4, I'm going to add 4, and so that means I still have -1 times the square root of x minus 6, and that's going to be equal to -5. Again, we said that -1 is being multiplied, so that means we're going to divide it. And so we are left with the square root of x minus 6, and this is equal to a negative divided by negative is a positive. So step 1 is done. We have isolated the radical by itself. Now it's time for us to get rid of this radical. This radical is a square root. So the inverse would be if I squared it. Whatever I do to one side of my equation, I have to do to the other side. That will mean that the square root and the exponent will neutralize. They should cancel because they're inverses. And I'm left with x minus 6 is equal, and then 5 squared, well, that's 5 times 5, and that is 25. So step 2 is done. Step 2 was to undo the radical. Now we're on to step 3. So step 3 is when we solve for our variable. So we do need to pay attention. Double check, do you have a variable squared? The answer is no, you just have an x here. So all we need to do to get x by itself is to move this -6. So we're going to add 6 to the other side. That would be 0. We are left over with x. And x is going to be equal to 31. Now we're almost done. What do we need to do to see if this is a true solution? We need to check it. So our final step here, we're going to check. And again, we're going to plug this potential answer into our original function. So my original function would have had that negative sign, the square root. Instead of an x here, I'm going to do 31 minus 6. Then minus 4 is equal to -9. So let's go ahead and see if this works or not. So we need to do 31 minus 6. 31 minus 6 would be 25. So I've got a negative sign, radical 25 minus 4 is equal to -9. We know that the square root of 25 is 5. So I have -5 minus 4 is equal to -9. And hopefully we can see that -9 is equal to -9. So yay, this works. So that means x is 31 is a true solution. So again, go through your problems, see where you were right, see where you were wrong, and see if you can maybe answer some of your own questions, because I bet you're smart enough to figure it out. If you're getting stuck, make sure you reach out to me. Remember, you can send me a message through Remind, you can email me, or you can send me a text. All right, so let's go on to the next problem. This one's a little bit harder. And I want, again, you to pause this video, give it a try. This is a problem from day 2 of solving. So remember, with day 2, we should hopefully notice that we have what outside of the radical. Hopefully we notice that we have a variable that's here on the outside. And that's important to us. That's going to be meaningful to us. So go ahead and pause the video, give this problem a try, and then hit play once you're ready for me to go over this problem. All right, let's go ahead and talk through it. So first step, we need to get that radical by itself. Well, it's already by itself. There's no other numbers or variables on the left side with the radical. So we can actually jump to step number 2. Step number 2 is to undo the radical, which happens to be a square root. So we are going to do the inverse. We are going to square both sides. Now on the left side, this should be kind of easy because hopefully we recognize that we're doing the inverse of the square root in the square. So I would be left with x plus 4. Over on the other side, though, we have to pay close attention. I cannot just distribute the exponent of a 2. That's a no-no. What I really need to be doing here is x minus 2 times x minus 2. So that means I need to do a quick box method. Hopefully box method is getting a lot easier for you as we work and just practice this over and over again. This would be x squared minus 2x minus 2x and then plus 4. So we've multiplied these together. Combining like terms means I would have x squared minus 4x plus 4. So I'm done with step 2. Now we're moving on to step 3. Step 3 means that I need to start solving for my variable. The issue here that we should notice is that I have a variable squared, which means I have a quadratic. So I need to put this in standard form. I'm going to need to factor it in order to get down to my individual solutions. I need individually an x and not an x squared. I need to undo that multiplication. So put this in standard form. Let's go ahead and move some values because standard form, we need to set equal to 0. I'm going to subtract x, move that to the other side. And I'm going to subtract 4, move that over to the other side. All right, so that would be 0 and 0. So 0 is equal to, now let's take a look at this. I've got x squared, and then I've got minus 5x. Now notice here, what's 4 minus 4? That's a 0. Huh, interesting. Okay, so technically a 0 here. We don't really need to write it, and that's okay. All right, so we've got this x squared. I need to start factoring this. Now don't forget, what's the first factor you're always going to look for? You're going to always look for a GCF first. Now, hopefully we see this because this could be a little tricky. We don't see this often, but notice how if I don't have a C value, if I just have this A and B, notice how both of these have an X. So that means I'm allowed to factor out or divide both by X. If I divide by x, I would be left with an x here, because again, I would be canceling out one of my x's, minus 5, because both of these x's would also simplify. So notice that this purple x here on the outside is my GCF. And if you notice my leftovers, x minus 5, do I have a square anymore? No, so I have x times x minus 5. And notice right here, if there's no square, then we don't need to factor further. It's only if I factor out a GCF and I have an x squared left over, then I would need to do like my A, my B, and my C and continue on with X method. But if I factor out my GCF and I'm not left with an x squared, then technically these are my factors. And in order to go from factors to solutions, we need to take each factor and set each factor equal to 0. So let's take a look at this. So my first factor here is this x. So I'm going to take x and set that equal to 0. And then my other factor is x minus 5. So I'm going to take x minus 5 and set that equal to 0. Now notice for this first factor of x, I'm already solved for. Like I already have x is equal to 0. So that's something for us to consider. It's already done. And if I look at my other one, I just need to add 5 and add 5, and x would be equal to 5. All right, so I've got my possible solutions. What am I going to be doing in order to see if both of these are true? Well, I need to check it. I need to plug it in. So we're going to go ahead and check 0. So that would mean the square root of 0 plus 4 is equal to 0 minus 2. While 0 plus 4, that would be 4, and 0 minus 2 is negative 2. The square root of 4 is 2, and that's a negative 2. Nope, that doesn't work. So that means that this cannot be one of my solutions. This is an extraneous solution. And remember, extraneous solutions are the fake ones. They ain't real. We want to cut them out. This doesn't work. Let's test out 5. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to do the square root of 5 plus 4, and that's equal to 5 minus 2. Well, 5 plus 4 would be 9, and 5 minus 2 would be 3, and we know that the square root of 9 is 3, so yes, this works. And so that means x plus 5 is our true solution. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of practice getting into today. Today, for your lesson / practice / what you're doing a little bit of an activity. So at this point, I've taught you how to do this. You really just need to practice. So the directions for this activity, you're going to get a little card, and you're going to solve both of the problems. Once you get the answers to both the problems, you need to either add, subtract, multiply, or divide, and you're going to get an answer. Now, your answer that you get should match the answer on the card, and that's how you will know whether you did the problem right or wrong. Obviously, if your answers don't match here at the end, then you know you need to go through and check your work. So you have in total 6 problems to do. You have 2 that are mild problems, and again, you're going to solve each of these, add the answers, and they should equal 30. You have 2 medium problems. Again, complete these 2 problems, subtract your answers, and you should get -3 to know that you're correct. And last but not least, you got some spicy problems. And those are like our day 2 problems where you're having to factor. Again, you're going to get your answers, multiply your answers together, and this should be the result. If you don't get that, you know that you did something wrong. You will be doing all of your work on a piece of paper and submitting that work into Canvas. So please make sure to go back into Canvas and follow through with that, so that way you get your grade for the work that you have put in. Make sure to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I hope you have a wonderful day.